When the galaxy faced a threat beyond the boundaries of reality, only humanity, who had hidden its true strength for centuries, could lead the fight for survival. Uniting the scattered civilizations at the final hour, they built a shield against the all-consuming darkness. Earth did not become a conqueror, it became the last hope of an entire galactic civilization. The twilight over New Earth's western seaboard shimmered in violet and gold, but those standing in the command center beneath the surface saw none of it. They had long since stopped admiring sunsets. Every window was now a tactical screen, every reflection a calculation of risk. Humanity had prepared for this moment for over 2 centuries, and no one dared allow themselves the distraction of beauty now. High Commander Elena Drax stood at the central holodable, her uniform a deep graphite color, devoid of decoration. Only a small, worn patch at her shoulder, a stylized earth with a spear piercing a star, hinted at her allegiance. Around her, aides murmured updates, streamed battle simulations, and parsed incoming data with grim efficiency. Signal received, Lieutenant Saren reported, his voice a hard-edged whisper. Their fleet is assembling at the edge of the system. Drax nodded without turning. She had known it was coming since the first hyperwave blip a week ago. The Alvar Dominion, a sprawling star empire of reptilian elegance and brutal conquest, had finally cast its eyes toward Earth. Their scouts had probed the outer defenses, mapping what they thought were outdated satellites and primitive orbital stations. Their analysts had no doubt already declared Earth ripe for harvesting. Exactly as planned. Status of the Phantom Nets? Drax asked. Fully deployed, replied Saren. They still believe our visible tech is genuine. Drax allowed herself a thin smile. Humanity's true strength had never been its ships or its weapons. It was patience. It was deception. And above all, it was adaptability. Across the tactical display, the Dominion fleet blossomed into view. Sleek, silver-edged warships in wedge formations, their engines burning with the sickly green of force singularity drives. Thousands of them. Enough firepower to glass a planet twice Earth's size. They brought their 2nd and 5th armadas, Saren murmured, all mixing with fear. They brought their funeral, Drax replied coldly. In the darkness of interstellar space, far beyond the reach of human telescopes and Dominion arrogance, lay the true defenders of Earth, the Silent Wings. Cloaked fleets hidden in the asteroid belt. Moon bases shielded beneath layers of quantum camouflage. Surface facilities disguised as mining operations and weather stations. All of them had waited, watched, evolved. And now, they would act. Supreme Overseer Rethvar of the Alvar Dominion stood upon the observation bridge of the Triumphant Eternity, his primary crest flared in satisfaction. Before him, the blue-green orb of Earth spun lazily, a gem dangling upon the black velvet of space. Another garden world, he said to his advisors, his voice carrying the smug assurance of countless victorious campaigns. Another tribute to the strength of the Alvar bloodline. The strategist beside him, a thinner, silver-scaled figure named Iskin, bowed low. Their defenses are laughable, Overseer. Early gravitic manipulation at best. Fusion weaponry barely above experimental levels. They remain planet-bound, with no significant interstellar capabilities. Rethvar allowed himself a luxurious breath. Prepare the standard ultimatum broadcast. Offer them the mercy of incorporation. Iskin hesitated. There is an anomaly, Overseer. Rethvar turned, his gold-irised eyes narrowing. Iskin continued quickly. Our long-range scans have noted energy fluctuations inconsistent with the visible infrastructure. It could be a natural phenomenon, primitive reactor instability, but... Rethvar snorted. Or the desperate flailing of a cornered beast. No matter. Prepare the broadcast. Across Earth, every screen, every communicator, every data channel flickered to life. The image of Rethvar filled them, towering and resplendent in his battle regalia. His voice transmitted in every known tongue. People of Earth, he proclaimed, you stand upon the threshold of destiny. Surrender your world, your resources, your future to the Dominion, and you shall be spared. Resist, and no annihilation. They expected fear. They expected chaos. Instead, they received silence. No frantic governments pleading for terms. No desperate militias posturing hopelessly. Only a single, terse message relayed through the same networks Rethvar had hijacked. We decline. For a heartbeat, there was stillness. Then came the alarms. Overseer, cried the sensor officer. Multiple contacts, emerging from shadowed sectors. Cloaked vessels. What? Rethvar thundered. Impossible. Their technology. A dozen human vessels materialized around the Dominion's vanguard fleet, weapons charging in synchronized pulses. Their designs were unlike anything in Dominion archives, adaptive hulls that shifted under observation, engines that bent the light around them, weapons arrays humming with controlled singularities. The first volley was precise, devastating. Dominion cruisers crumpled inward like tin pressed by an invisible hand. Energy lances scythed through destroyer ranks, slicing ships in half before their crews could even react. Return fire. Rethvar roared. But their own targeting systems struggled against electronic fog, a cascading storm of false signatures and quantum echoes seeded by human countermeasures. Their shots went wild, or worse, were reflected back by projected gravitic fields. On Earth, in the deep bunkers of Command Core, Elena Drax watched the battle unfold, her hands clasped behind her back. Phase 2, she ordered. Across the solar system, hidden installations on Mars, Europa, Ganymede, and Titan awoke. Missile batteries fired payloads wrapped in stealth fields. Interceptor drones launched by the tens of thousands, weaving a lethal web between Earth and the Dominion fleets. And from the asteroid belt, the silent wings came. Hundreds of ships, each an apex predator in the art of space combat, struck the Dominion's rear lines, sowing confusion and devastation. The trap had been laid centuries ago. The patience had been worth it. Earth was not a helpless garden world. It was a fortress wrapped in legend, steeped in blood and resilience, hidden behind 1,000 lies until the moment was right. That moment had come. And now, the stars themselves would bear witness. The Dominion fleet, once the embodiment of unstoppable force, was now a scattered, panicked swarm. Supreme Overseer Rethvar gripped the command rail of the Triumphant Eternity, his claws digging furrows into the polished alloy. His once gleaming crest sagged with disbelief. Around him, the command bridge was chaos, alarms blaring, officers barking contradictory orders, screens flashing red with cascading system failures. This cannot be. Rethvar bellowed, slamming a fist into the console. They are primitives. But the evidence unfolded before him with ruthless clarity. Human strike craft, impossibly agile, zipped through the Dominion formations. Their weapons, sleek gravitational harpoons, phase disruptor charges, nanite swarms, were decades, perhaps centuries, beyond anything the Dominion had ever faced. Worse, their tactics adapted fluidly. No Dominion battle doctrine prepared for enemies who rewrote the rules mid-conflict, who learned with every heartbeat, every breath. Multiple ships lost, reported Iskin, his voice a hoarse whisper. Our dreadnoughts are being picked apart at long range. Reform Battle Group Sigma. Rethvar barked. Fall back to defensive shells. But before Sigma could assemble, human vessels seeded the space between the retreating ships with collapsing microgravitational traps. The Dominion vessels twisted, ruptured, and vanished into silent singularities one by one. Rethvar watched the icons wink out from the tactical display like dying embers. And then came the message. Not a demand, not a threat, an invitation. The main view screen shifted to a transmission from Earth Command. High Commander Elena Drax appeared, her uniform as plain and unadorned as ever. Behind her, the swirling blue of Earth's oceans gleamed, serene and defiant. Supreme Overseer Rethvar, she said evenly. You have miscalculated. Earth is not yours for the taking. Stand down. Withdraw your forces. Her face extinction. No posturing. No roaring speeches. Just fact. A bead of sweat, an instinctive biological response Rethvar despised, trickled down the side of his scaled face. Prepare emergency transmission to the Council, he rasped. Far across the stars, in the gleaming towers of the Galactic Council's spire of law, the alarms rang. The Council was ancient, spanning thousands of civilizations and eons of interstellar politics. Its members had seen wars, extinctions, ascensions, and collapses. Yet nothing, not even the Great Rift Crisis, had triggered an emergency session this quickly. Delegates materialized in the spire's central hall, gaseous entities flowing into containment fields, crystalline minds broadcasting themselves as fractal holograms, organic leaders in intricate ceremonial garb, all peered anxiously at the live feed from Sol System. The Dominion's fleets, their pride, were being slaughtered. Without mercy. Without even apparent effort. Grand Arbiter Velia of the Zerth Collective floated to the center platform, her silver membranes pulsing with agitation. Explain this, she demanded, her voice translated into 100 languages. Earth was classified as pre-threshold. Primitive. The archivist of galactic records, an ancient being whose form flickered between phases of matter, projected a vast holographic display of Earth's history. Records indicate anomalies, the archivist intoned. Multiple external contacts over millennia. Technological development inconsistent with planetary isolation. Numerous reverse-engineered artifacts detected. However, full classification was never completed. Never completed? Velia hissed. The Council could not agree, the archivist replied. Another voice, low and resonant, rose from the chamber's depths. It is worse than that, said Warden Call of the Elysian Guard. Earth was placed under quarantine protocol. A ripple of shock coursed through the assembly. Quarantine protocol, the highest level of containment, reserved only for worlds that posed unpredictable, existential risks to the galactic order. And yet no one had enforced it. No one had warned the Dominion. The hall erupted into chaos, accusations, denials, demands for explanations. Back in Sol System, the Dominion fleet faltered. Human reinforcements arrived in waves, not because they were needed, but to ensure no hope of recovery for the invaders. From the far side of Mars, vast cruisers cloaked in chameleon fields slipped into engagement range. From hidden bases on Titan and Callisto, heavy artillery platforms unmasked, raining kinetic lances across the battlefield. But Earth's greatest weapon was neither ship nor gun. It was the minds guiding them. Each tactical decision by the humans seemed impossibly precise, as if the battle had been fought and won 1,000 times before in simulation. Dominion commanders found themselves predicted, countered, trapped, like chess players realizing they had lost long before the final move. Inside the triumphant eternity, Overseer Rethvar sagged into his command throne, defeated. "Signal retreat," he croaked. "All units, disengage." Across the Dominion fleet, the order rippled. Engines flared, ships turned, wounded vessels trailing plasma and wreckage behind them as they fled the solar system. They left behind shattered hulks and the drifting remains of their arrogance. Earth did not pursue. High Commander Drax watched the last blip vanish from her tactical screen before finally allowing herself to sit. Around her, the room remained tense, disciplined, but a pulse of silent, collective relief passed among her officers. "We won't celebrate yet," she said aloud, breaking the spell. This was only the first act. And deep within the hidden vaults of Earth's command networks, Protocol Dawnfire was quietly activated. Because humanity knew the galaxy would not ignore this. Because the real battle, the battle for their place among the stars, was just beginning. The retreat of the Dominion shattered more than just their fleets, it fractured the entire perception of the galactic order. Within days, whispers spread like wildfire across the major civilizations. Trading hubs buzzed with hushed rumors. Merchant convoys altered centuries-old routes to avoid Sol. Diplomatic missions once bound for Earth turned back mid-journey. Fear and uncertainty gripped worlds that had once viewed humanity with casual condescension. At the heart of the storm, the Galactic Council convened its most critical closed session in 10,000 years. The spire of law was sealed. No broadcasts. No public records. Only the delegates, the watchers, and the silent, ancient machines that had recorded the Council's debates since before most current civilizations had even formed. The first speaker, an amorphous being known as Selvarin, whose consciousness spanned multiple synchronized bodies across different worlds, opened the session. Delegates of the Council, Selvarin intoned, its many voices harmonizing in unsettling cadence. The matter before us is unprecedented. Earth, once classified as Category 3 primitive, has demonstrated technological and strategic capabilities far exceeding projections. The crystalline ambassador of the Vex continuum flashed through several color spectrums before stabilizing into a deep ultraviolet hue, signaling alarm. Data conflicts detected, the Vex stated flatly. If Earth possessed such capabilities, their concealment represents a fundamental breach of the Concord of Disclosure. A low murmur rippled across the chamber. Selvarin gestured, and a new projection filled the central space, records dating back 15 millennia. Contact logs. Monitoring reports. Intervention proposals. Warnings from various observers posted near Sol. All ignored, buried, or deliberately stalled. The realization hit with a force greater than any weapon. Earth had not hidden from the galaxy. The galaxy had chosen to ignore the signs. It was easier, safer, to believe in human inferiority than to confront the growing anomaly. And now, the consequences had come due. On Earth, far below the gleaming towers of New Geneva, the archives of humanity opened sealed chambers that had not been touched in centuries. Teams of scholars and officers moved through the endless halls of knowledge, activating dormant systems. The Grand Recorders, humans who had dedicated generations to chronicling humanity's hidden evolution, prepared for the coming storm. High Commander Drax stood with Director Ansel Chen, head of the ARC project, before the first archive vault. "Will they listen?" Chen asked, his voice rough with exhaustion and hope alike. Drax folded her arms. "Some will. Some never will. But it no longer matters. The veil has lifted." Chen touched the activation rune. Massive screens lit up, projecting humanity's true history. The slow, deliberate integration of alien knowledge recovered from lost civilizations. The careful simulation of vulnerability to avoid early conflicts. The clandestine establishment of defensive networks spanning the solar system and beyond. And most importantly, the revelation that humanity had encountered and survived threats that most galactic powers had no idea even existed. Dark tides from beyond the galactic rim. Beings not bound by matter or energy as known by conventional science. Entities that consumed not worlds, but possibility itself. The silent wars fought not with fleets, but with reality-warping technologies and sacrifices no outsider had ever witnessed. Earth had not merely hidden its strength. It had hidden the fact that it had earned its survival against nightmares that the Council had no names for. At the Council, chaos reigned. Some delegates demanded immediate sanctioning of Earth, seeing only the threat. Others pleaded for diplomacy, seeing an opportunity for salvation from greater, unspoken terrors. Old alliances trembled. Fractures formed along ancient fault lines. And in the midst of the turmoil, a new voice entered the chamber. without warning, without announcement. A human envoy, not via transmission, not via embassy, but physically walking into the center of the spire of law. He wore no armor, no weapons, only a simple gray suit adorned with a symbol no delegate immediately recognized, a rising sun over a dark horizon. "Greetings," the envoy said, his voice amplified through the spire's ancient acoustic field. "I am Elias Ward, speaking for the Earth Accord." Silence gripped the chamber like a vice. "You did not summon us," Ward continued, "but you discussed us, judged us, feared us." He raised his hand, and holographic projections blossomed around him, not of weapons or battles, but of restored ecosystems, thriving human-alien collaborations on distant colonies, technologies designed to heal, not destroy. "We offer not conquest, but partnership." He turned slowly, his gaze unwavering. "But know this, Earth will not kneel. Not now. Not ever." Delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some bristling, others watching with unreadable expressions. Ward smiled, not with arrogance, but with unshakable certainty. "The galaxy has grown complacent behind its treaties and its grand councils. We come not to break them, but to remind you of the truth you have forgotten." Another wave of images, the silent wars, the dark entities defeated, the shattered timelines mended. "If you fear us, good. Fear keeps arrogance in check. But know this also, we fear what waits beyond your borders. And we will stand against it, with or without you." With that, he turned and walked out. No guards stopped him. No barriers could have. The galaxy had heard Earth's voice, and it would never forget. In the weeks following Elias Ward's unprecedented appearance before the Galactic Council, the galaxy shifted in ways no one could have predicted. Some worlds, those long oppressed by the stagnant powers of the Council, those whose voices had been ignored for centuries, rallied to Earth's message. Quietly at first, then more openly, they sent envoys to the Accord, seeking partnership, offering technology, culture, manpower. Other powers recoiled, blinded by fear. The Dominion, though humiliated, was not destroyed, and in its wounded pride, it began to gather secret allies. Fragmented empires, mercenary guilds, rogue scientific enclaves, all drawn together by a common, desperate goal: contain humanity by any means necessary. Thus, two great currents began to move through the stars, silent but inexorable: hope and fear. High above the shimmering oceans of Tau Ceti IV, a secret conference convened. It was called the Iron Pact, a meeting of those who believed humanity's existence was a galactic threat greater than any benefit they might offer. Representatives gathered aboard the Black Station Omen, a structure so heavily cloaked it did not exist on any official maps. Among them sat the high strategist of the Techraxi warlords, the shadow emissary of the Spheric Resistance, the cloistered lords of the Velisic Shard, and even rogue elements from the Council's enforcement arms. Around the cold, metal table, holograms flickered, projecting simulations of human expansion scenarios. "If we allow them to consolidate their influence," rasped the strategist, her mandibles clacking nervously, "Earth will become an unstoppable gravitational center. No culture, no polity, no tradition will be safe." "They speak of peace," growled the Shard Lord, "but wield the threat of annihilation behind every offer." "We must strike before their network matures," hissed the Techraxi, "before they bind the outer worlds and the fractured rings to their costs." Murmured agreements filled the room. The Iron Pact was formed not with fanfare or declarations, but with silent nods and bloodless promises. They would strike, not with open fleets, but through subversion, biological weapons, and information warfare. They would erode Earth's alliances, corrupt their technologies, assassinate their leaders. They would break humanity's spirit from within. Or so they believed. Meanwhile, within the Earth Accord's inner circles, preparations moved forward. High Commander Drax met with Elias Ward in the Accord's Strategic Advisory Council beneath the crystalline vaults of New Geneva. Holographic maps showed the shifting loyalties of dozens of systems. Symbols marked the movements of suspected Iron Pact agents. Timelines counted down silent, ticking moments to projected attack scenarios. "They won't move openly," Drax said, tapping a system where several human-aligned colonies had gone silent. "They'll bleed us from the shadows." Ward nodded grimly. "That's why we move now." He gestured, and a new symbol appeared above the table, a rising star, framed by the spiral arms of the Milky Way. The Dawn Accord, an alliance not ruled by Earth, but led by mutual defense and shared vision. The charter was simple: sovereignty respected, cooperation voluntary, defense mutual, exploration collective. And beneath it all, the unspoken truth: the first line against the darkness beyond the stars would not be the scattered powers of the Council. It would be humanity, and those brave enough to stand beside them. Within days, the first signatories pledged allegiance. The Varellan Star Monasteries, ancient and wise. The Syndics of Arithia, masters of quantum mathematics. The nomadic fleets of the freeborn Hail, eternal wanderers who had never before bent knee to any power. Each arrival was celebrated, not with grand ceremonies, but with solemn acknowledgement, the understanding that unity was now a necessity, not a luxury. And far, far beyond the settled territories of the galaxy, unseen by the petty squabbles of empire and pride, something stirred. Within the void corridors between galaxies, ancient beacons long thought dead flickered to life. Creatures older than stars uncoiled from their slumber. Forms that defied geometry began to shift in the cold darkness. They had felt the disturbance. They had felt humanity's defiance. And they were coming. Not for conquest. Not for negotiation. But for consumption. In New Geneva's war room, Director Chen presented the latest intelligence. "We have less than 20 standard years," he said quietly. At best. The room fell into stunned silence. Even Drax, hardened by a lifetime of war and strategy, paled slightly. Ward exhaled slowly. "Then we build," he said simply. "We prepare. And when the darkness comes..." He looked around the room, locking eyes with every leader, every advisor, every soldier present. "We make sure it finds, not prey." He clenched his fist over the rising star symbol. But predators? The first blow fell silently. At the edge of the Sirius expanse, the human colony of Nissa Prime, a flourishing hub of diplomacy and trade, went dark. No distress signal. No warning. Only silence. When Accord scouts arrived days later, they found the planet's orbital stations drifting in shattered ruins. Surface settlements were abandoned, structures torn apart with surgical precision. It was as if life itself had been peeled away. There were no survivors. No enemies remained to claim responsibility. Only the bitter, crystalline dust of deliberate annihilation. Across the Dawn Accord, the reaction was swift. Emergency councils convened. Planetary defense grids were raised to full alert. Civilian evacuation drills became mandatory across every member world. High Commander Drax paced the central command platform of New Geneva's defense nexus, the maps before her blooming with alerts and threat vectors. "This is not a raid," she said aloud to the gathered leaders. "This is a message." Ward stood at her side, his expression carved from stone. "The Iron-Pact moves," he said grimly. "And they're just beginning." They could not match Earth in open war, so they had chosen the tactics of cowards: sabotage, assassination, subversion. Already, rumors flooded the data nets. Vital agricultural nanites on Ganymede failing en masse. Key wormhole stabilizers on Lythian crossings corrupted by viral code. Hidden sleeper cells revealed within newly admitted Accord worlds. Each act designed not to defeat humanity militarily, but to fracture the fragile trust upon which the Dawn Accord had been built. And it worked. Some members hesitated. Others withdrew into isolation. A few even openly questioned Earth's true intentions, falling prey to the poison words seeded by Iron-Pact operatives. The dream of unity, so bright just months before, dimmed under the shadow of orchestrated fear. Then came the assassination attempts. In the glittering spire city of Tau Ceti IV, Director Chen barely survived a gravitic implosion trap set in his diplomatic shuttle. On Varellan's sanctuaries, elders advocating alliance with Earth were found dead in ritualistic mockeries of their sacred rites. Even Ward himself was targeted, surviving only by the narrowest margin after his security detail intercepted a matter-phase sniper round aimed at his heart. Each attack was accompanied by falsified evidence, forged messages, manufactured witnesses, digital ghosts pointing fingers at Earth's own hands. The Iron-Pact was waging a war not of ships, but of truth, poisoning it until no one knew who to trust. In the defense nexus, the situation approached breaking point. "They're dismantling us from within," growled Drax, slamming her palm into the tactical table. "If we don't stop it, the Accord will collapse without a single shot fired." "We can't fight lies with bullets," Ward said quietly. "We need a different weapon." Silence filled the command room. Finally, from the shadows stepped Sarah Vance, director of the Phoenix Division, Earth's clandestine counterintelligence and disinformation agency. She was a ghost even among ghosts, a myth whispered among planetary governors and Warfleet admirals alike. Now she moved into the light, her sharp, gray eyes gleaming. "It's time," she said simply, "to burn the rot out." Project Aegis launched within the week. Not an army, not a fleet, but an idea. Earth turned its own mastery of deception against its enemies. They counter-infiltrated the Iron-Pact's networks. They seeded false betrayals among the conspirators, making them turn against each other. They exposed secret meetings to the public on a dozen worlds simultaneously, detonating trust within the enemy's own ranks. And more than that, they told the truth of the silent wars, the truth of the hidden battles humanity had fought not for conquest, but for survival, the truth of what loomed beyond the galactic rim. Raw, unvarnished, unavoidable. At first, the galaxy resisted. Fear fought desperately to maintain its hold. But truth, once seen, could not be unseen. The death of Nissa Prime, traced unmistakably to Iron-Pact operatives. The assassination attempts, revealed, with incontrovertible evidence, as fabrications orchestrated by the conspirators. The sabotage of infrastructures, shown in brutal clarity on public channels, implicating those who had screamed loudest against Earth. World by world, system by system, the tide turned. Those who had hesitated rejoined the accord. Those who had withdrawn sent envoys seeking forgiveness. And those who had betrayed humanity outright. They faced justice not from Earth's guns, but from the fury of their own betrayed peoples. But even as the internal war reached its crescendo, another signal arrived. From the edge of known space. From the ruined sentinels humanity had left at the galactic rim centuries ago. A single, broken transmission. They are coming. The dark tide had awoken. The galaxy would soon face a nightmare it was not prepared for. And only Earth, wounded but standing, could lead the defense. The final battle was approaching. Not for dominance. Not for pride. But for survival itself. The stars above New Earth burned with a cold, distant fire as the fleets assembled. Human ships, swift and predatory, took point, their sleek hulls shimmering with defensive fields woven from gravitic threads and quantum lace. Behind them, the vessels of the Dawn Accord gathered, strange and wondrous constructions, born of 100 different worlds, their crews bound not by blood or empire, but by shared determination. High Commander Drax stood on the command deck of the flagship Eos Rising, watching the final alignments unfold. Through the transparent display wall, she could see the formation, thousands strong, stretching from the orbit of Mars to the outer belts. Each ship carried within it the hopes and fears of countless species. Each one was a promise. That life, fragile and stubborn, would not go quietly into oblivion. At her side, Elias Ward reviewed the latest reports. The first anomalies have breached the outer sensor net, he said quietly. On the tactical displays, disturbances bloomed like bruises on the fabric of space, points where light twisted unnaturally, where gravitational laws frayed like torn cloth. The beings from beyond, the hunger, the shroud yin, the nameless, they had 1,000 names and 1,000 myths. But here, in the cold calculus of defense protocols, they were simply designated. Class Omega existential threats. They did not conquer. They did not reason. They consumed. Worlds, civilizations, possibilities themselves. And they were already closer than anyone had dared imagine. In the spire of law, the Galactic Council, battered, humbled, fragmented, convened one final time. No longer to argue, but to survive. Elias Ward stood before them, not as a petitioner, but as a final beacon. You have seen what Earth can do, he said, his voice echoing in the vast hall. You have seen what unity can achieve. Now you must choose. He allowed the silence to stretch, heavy, unrelenting. Stand with us, he said at last. Or fall alone. Slowly, hesitantly, the delegates responded. One by one, their species' emblems flared to life on the Great Accord's sigil projected above the chamber. Not all. Some worlds still chose isolation. Some empires, clinging to old pride, withdrew into their bunkers, their citadels. But enough answered. Enough to forge a defense not of desperation, but of resolve. A new accord, signed not in treaties or blood, but in the shared promise to defy extinction. As the dark tide approached, humanity led the preparations. Earth's hidden wonders were revealed at last. Arcships capable of evacuating entire biospheres. Deep space fortresses constructed inside stable singularities. Minefield generators, psychic amplification arrays designed to combat entities whose existence blurred thought and matter. And, perhaps most importantly, the final product of humanity's ancient silent wars, the Aegis Protocol. A shield not merely of energy or matter, but of possibility itself. Forged through sacrifices no history book had dared record. A defense line strung across the galactic rim like a wall of light and song. The day of reckoning came. The first Shroudkin breach opened near the dead reaches. From it spilled abominations of impossible geometry, devouring starlight as they came. The fleets of the Accord met them in battle. Kinetic rounds shredded void beasts before they could fully manifest. Quantum torpedoes detonated realities where the creatures attempted to anchor themselves. Gravitic snares ensnared in compressed horrors that defied even conceptual definition. The battle was not clean. It was chaos. It was desperation. It was beautiful. Ships burned. Planets trembled. Entire stars flickered as ancient technology strained under forces never meant to be confronted. But through it all, Earth's fleets held the line. Human commanders adapted strategies mid-battle, countering each new terror with relentless ingenuity. Allies fought side by side with enemies of old, shedding ancient hatreds in the furnace of survival. And when the Shroudin unleashed their final weapon, a collapse wave designed to erase the very fabric of the Accord, it was humanity's Aegis Protocol that activated. Across thousands of light years, a lattice of light flared into being, singing a defiant, impossible song. Not today. Not here. Not ever. The wave broke. The tide recoiled. And in that moment, the galaxy changed forever. When the last echoes of battle faded, when the wreckage of heroes and monsters alike drifted silently through reclaimed space, a new dawn rose. Humanity did not claim dominion. They did not demand tribute. Instead, they offered the future. A future built not on conquest, but on vigilance. Not on fear, but on understanding. Not on isolation, but on unity. Earth, once a forgotten cradle, now stood as the heart of a galaxy reborn. A beacon against the eternal dark. A reminder that while darkness might come, while horrors might rise from the abyss, there would always be those who chose to fight. Not for glory, not for power, but for each other. And as the first new colonies were founded in the cleansed frontier, as songs in 1,000 languages rose in celebration across the stars, one simple truth endured. Humanity was never the galaxy's greatest threat. It was its greatest hope.